It was a quiet morning in the mountains. The sun had just risen from behind the hills, shedding its soft light on Lucas and Anna's ranch. Awake before dawn as usual, the two of them were already on the veranda, admiring the horizon. Lucas, a sturdy man with a steady gaze and careful gestures, watched the fields with a sense of silent pride. Next to him, Anna, with delicate features but an indomitable strength in her eyes, breathed deeply of the fresh air of nature that surrounded them. "Looks like it's going to be a good day," Lucas commented, turning to her with a discreet smile. Anna smiled back, smoothing down her wind-blown hair. "Every day here is a blessing. Sometimes I wonder what our life would be like if we had chosen another path." Lucas shrugged and looked at the vast field in front of him. "I can't imagine any other place for us," he said. "And Daniel, here he's learning the value of the land, of wildlife. It wouldn't be the same anywhere else." Daniel, their 8-year-old son, appeared in the doorway, rubbing his still sleepy eyes. He was a curious child, always eager to explore the nature around the ranch. He was always running through the fields, following animal tracks, learning every detail of the ecosystem that his parents valued so much. "Dad, Mom, are you going out to work in the fields today?" he asked, with the typical energy that comes out of nowhere when children wake up. "Of course," replied Anna, bending down to hug him. "But first, let's all have breakfast together, shall we?" As they made their way to the kitchen, Lucas couldn't help but look up at the sky, a habit he had acquired since a special event years before. A point on the horizon caught his eye, a majestic figure gliding high above, almost imperceptible to the eyes of anyone who wasn't paying attention. "Look," Lucas said, pointing to the sky. "He's here again." Anna and Daniel turned to see the great eagle soaring over the ranch, its broad wings slicing the air with an imposing grace that only the largest predators possessed. It had been a long time since that mysterious creature had prowled their land, appearing from time to time, as if on the lookout. "Zeus," Daniel murmured in awe. "He always appears on the most beautiful days, doesn't he, Dad?" Lucas nodded without taking his eyes off the eagle. "Yes, Daniel. I think he likes this place as much as we do." Zeus, as they had nicknamed the eagle, was a symbol of strength and freedom. For the family, it represented something much bigger than just a wild bird. It was almost as if there was a silent connection between it and the ranch, an invisible pact that bound them in some mysterious way. And although it was a free animal, it always came back, as if it had something to protect. Anna looked at Lucas and then at Daniel with a pensive expression. "Do you remember how it all began?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with the memory of something important. Lucas nodded again, and the three of them sat in silence for a moment, watching the imposing eagle disappear over the horizon. They knew that Zeus's history with the family wasn't just a fluke, and that he had a special meaning, one that was perhaps yet to be revealed. The icy wind cut through the air by the river that fall afternoon, when Lucas, still young and strong, took an unusual path during his usual walk through the ranch lands. The sound of the water running gently through the riverbed echoed, contrasting with the silence of the surrounding mountains. Something, however, didn't seem right. Lucas felt uneasy. He stopped for a moment, looked around, and tried to identify the reason for his sudden discomfort. Then he heard it, a distant, almost imperceptible sound, a muffled moan. His senses sharpened, Lucas hurried towards the source of the sound. His steps took him to a denser area of vegetation, where a shocking scene awaited him. A young eagle, caught in a steel trap, was desperately struggling to free itself. Its wings, breathtakingly beautiful even in its weakened state, trembled with each unsuccessful attempt to escape. "My God," muttered Lucas, feeling the weight of urgency. Without a second thought, he ran up to the animal. The eagle tried to flap its wings when it saw Lucas approaching, but the pain prevented it from flying. Its golden eyes, full of pain and fear, stared at Lucas, who, his heart racing, crouched down next to the trap. He knew he had to be quick, but careful. "Calm down. I'm going to get you out of here," he murmured, as if the animal could understand him. Lucas deftly used the small iron bar he always carried on his belt to loosen the trap's teeth. The mechanism gave way with difficulty, emitting a dry snap. Finally, the eagle was free, but it couldn't fly. Its wings were badly wounded and there was blood on its feathers. It was exhausted, barely able to hold its head up. "You'll be fine, I promise," said Lucas, carefully taking the eagle in his arms. The animal's weight was impressive, but Lucas didn't hesitate. He knew that if he didn't act quickly, the eagle wouldn't survive. With firm but quick steps, he crossed the forest and returned to the ranch. When he reached the door, Anna was already waiting for him, the expression of concern clear on her face. "What happened?" she asked, seeing Lucas carrying the wounded eagle. "I found her caught in a trap by the river," Lucas explained, panting. "We need to take care of her, Anna. If we don't do it now, she won't resist." Without hesitation, Anna began to organize the supplies. She knew her husband wouldn't let any creature suffer, and she shared the same spirit. Before long, the two of them were around the eagle, cleaning her wounds with warm water and applying herbs they knew well, which helped heal deep cuts. "Is she going to be all right?" Daniel asked, his small eyes attentive. He was standing in the doorway watching his parents' every move. "If we do our part, she'll recover, son," replied Anna, with an encouraging smile. The next few days were filled with total dedication. The eagle, which Lucas and Anna began to call Zeus because of its imposing size and strength, was slowly showing signs of recovery. Although at first it didn't move much, its ever-watchful eyes followed the family. Lucas noticed the glow of life returning to that powerful creature. And with it, a hope grew in him that Zeus might one day return to the heavens. "I never thought I'd get so attached to a wild animal," Lucas confessed to Anna one evening, as the two of them watched the eagle resting in a makeshift wooden box in the barn. "He's not just any animal," said Anna, looking at Zeus. "He seems to be connected to us in some way." Time passed, and Zeus finally began to flap his wings more forcefully. One day, while Lucas and Anna were busy in the field, they heard a powerful sound from above. When they looked up into the sky, they saw Zeus flying, for the first time since the rescue. Lucas smiled, deep relief filling his heart. "It's time," he said, knowing that the moment to free the eagle had arrived. Later that afternoon, Lucas, Anna, and Daniel walked to the highest hill on the ranch. With Zeus in his arms, Lucas took one last look at the majestic eagle. "It's time for you to go back where you belong," he murmured with a mixture of sadness and pride. When he opened his arms, Zeus hesitated for a moment, staring at Luke, as if he understood what was happening. Then, with a loud flapping of his wings, he took flight, disappearing over the horizon as the sun set. They believed that this would be the end of their bond with the eagle, that it would go on its way in the wild. Little did they know that Zeus would return, and his connection with the family would become something much deeper and more powerful than they could have imagined. Days had passed since Zeus flew out of Lucas's hands for the last time. The routine on the ranch had returned to normal, and although the family felt a silent absence, they understood that the eagle had found his way. Daniel, always curious, asked from time to time, "Dad, do you think Zeus is all right? Will he ever come back?" Lucas, with a faraway look in his eyes, always answered with the same serenity, "He's fine, son. Eagles were made to fly free." But deep down, Lucas also wondered if Zeus still remembered them. Nature was unpredictable, and he knew that, although they had saved the bird's life, its connection with the wild world was much greater than any bond with humans. It was an ordinary late afternoon. The sun was beginning to hide behind the mountains, and Lucas was sitting on the balcony with a cup of coffee in his hands, watching the horizon. Anna was indoors, preparing dinner, and Daniel was playing in the yard, chasing the chickens as he always did. Everything was peaceful until a familiar sound broke the silence. It was a scream, a high-pitched, powerful scream that seemed to cut through the air from above. Lucas immediately stood up, his eyes scanning the sky. There, flying over the estate, was Zeus. His spread wings seemed to cover the sky, and his majestic flight was now unmistakable. Lucas was paralyzed for a moment, unable to believe his eyes. "Anna!" he shouted, calling for his wife. "Come and see this!" Anna ran out onto the balcony, drying her hands on her apron with an expression of confusion. "What is it, Lucas?" Before he could answer, she saw it. Zeus was descending in a spiral flight, as if showing off his grace. Daniel, who had also heard the eagle's cries, stopped running and looked up at the sky, his eyes wide with surprise. "Zeus! He's back!" Daniel shouted enthusiastically, running towards where the eagle was flying over. Zeus, now more imposing than ever, circled one last time in the air and landed in a tall tree near the ranch. He balanced on his strong talons, watching the family from above. Its piercing eyes roamed over each of them, as if making sure they were all right. Anna slowly approached Lucas, without taking her eyes off the eagle. "I can't believe he's back. I thought he would go on his way forever," she said, almost in a whisper. "Maybe he never left us," Lucas replied, his deep voice reflecting the emotion he felt. Zeus continued to fly over the ranch in the days that followed. He didn't come very close, but he was always there, gliding high above, like a silent sentinel. Lucas noticed that at certain times, when Daniel was playing in the fields, the eagle would be especially attentive, as if protecting the boy from some invisible danger. Zeus's constant presence began to create a sense of security for the family, especially for Daniel, who was delighted every time he spotted the eagle. He would run around the property, shouting at the sky, "Zeus, look at me! I'm running as fast as you're flying!" Lucas, although he found this amusing, also realized something deeper. The relationship between the eagle and the family seemed to be transforming into something beyond gratitude. It was as if Zeus had somehow chosen this place as his home. One afternoon, while looking after the cattle, Lucas felt Zeus's presence closer than usual. When he looked up, he saw the great eagle perched on a wooden post, watching him. The two stared at each other for long seconds, as if they shared a silent understanding. "I know, old friend," Lucas said to himself, with a half-smile. "You're here to stay, aren't you?" Zeus nodded slightly, as if he had heard Luke's words, and took flight again, disappearing into the golden evening sky. Time passed, and Zeus's presence became part of the family's routine. He was no longer just an eagle they had rescued. He was the invisible guardian of the ranch. Whenever Lucas or Anna felt that something wasn't right, all they had to do was look up at the sky. If Zeus was there, they knew they were safe. Even though he was a wild creature, Zeus was now part of the family in a way that none of them had expected. They knew that one day he might leave, never to return. But until that day came, he would remain a silent protector, flying high, his powerful wings stretching out like a shield over those who had once saved his life. The sun was shining, and the cloudless blue sky gave the day a sense of peace. It seemed like an ordinary afternoon on the farm, the kind of day when nothing could go wrong. Lucas, Anna, and Daniel decided that they would spend the day together in the woods near the ranch. It was one of their favorite places, surrounded by tall trees and a gently flowing stream. There, nature seemed to whisper secrets to the wind, a tranquility that always enchanted the little family. "Shall we play hide and seek?" suggested Daniel with his usual mischievous smile. "Sure, but remember not to go too far," warned Anna, already aware that her son loved to run around the far corners of the forest. Lucas laughed and ruffled Daniel's hair. "I think I'm going to have a hard time hiding from you today. Let's see if you can find me." The afternoon went on quietly. The sound of Daniel's laughter mingled with the bird song, and the distant sound of the water. Lucas and Anna sat by the stream, watching their son run between the trees, always careful not to lose sight of him. Everything seemed to be in perfect harmony. But then the peace was shattered by an unexpected sound. A sharp, piercing scream echoed through the sky, a sound that Lucas and Anna recognized immediately. Zeus. Lucas suddenly stood up, his heart beating faster. "What was that?" Anna asked, already sounding worried. Before they could process what was happening, they saw something that seemed impossible. Zeus, the imposing eagle that had been watching them from the sky, was descending in a dizzying flight. His spread wings formed a shadow that seemed to cover the entire forest, and in a matter of seconds, he dived straight towards Daniel. "Daniel!" screamed Anna, her voice coming out in a desperation that Lucas had never heard before. In one swift, precise movement, Zeus grabbed Daniel with his claws. The boy, taken by surprise, didn't even have time to react. He was lifted off the ground in a matter of seconds, and the scream that escaped his mouth was enough to make Lucas's blood run cold. "What's he doing?" shouted Lucas, starting to run desperately after the eagle. Anna ran too, tears already filling her eyes. It was a nightmare scene. Zeus, the eagle they had rescued and believed to be their protector, was now carrying their son through the sky, as if he were prey. "No, let him go!" Anna shouted, her voice hoarse with despair. The scene seemed unreal, as if time had slowed down. Lucas and Anna ran through the woods, trying to keep up with Zeus's flight, but the eagle was fast and powerful. Every beat of its wings seemed to carry Daniel further away. "What is he doing?" Lucas repeated, more to himself than to Anna. His mind couldn't process the idea that Zeus, the creature he had saved, was now threatening his son's life. Anna, running to Lucas's side, was already sobbing with despair. "He's going to hurt him! He's going to—" Anna's voice failed her as she stared helplessly at the sky. Lucas, his heart racing and his mind racing, knew that they wouldn't be able to reach Zeus by just running. They were falling behind. His heavy feet, the rough terrain, nothing was helping. He needed to think fast, but the panic that consumed his chest made everything blurry. "Daniel!" shouted Lucas once more, but the answer that came from his son was a scream of pure terror. The scene seemed even more devastating than anything he had ever experienced. Zeus continued to fly, now in a wider circle, keeping at a height that made it look like Daniel was one step away from the abyss. The boy struggled, terrified, his little legs dangling in the air. Lucas felt the panic rising, a terrible pain forming in his chest as he realized that they were losing control of the situation. But then something happened. Zeus began to lose altitude. "He's coming down!" Lucas said in a hoarse voice, slowing down to try and understand what was happening. Anna, now covered in tears and sobbing, stopped beside him, her hands shaking, her eyes fixed on the eagle and her son, as if trying to believe that it wasn't really happening. Zeus, with surprisingly smooth movements, descended to a clearing near the stream, where he landed gently. He opened his claws and placed Daniel on the ground, unharmed. Lucas and Anna, still incredulous, ran to their son, their hearts beating with a mixture of relief and confusion. Daniel, now still, looked more shocked than hurt. "Daniel!" Anna screamed, falling to her knees beside him, holding him in her arms, crying. "Are you all right? Did he hurt you?" Daniel was frightened, but unharmed. He shook his head, trying to control his tears. I don't know why he did it," stammered Daniel, still shaking. Lucas, still panting, looked at Zeus. The eagle stood there a few meters away, watching the scene with its impassive golden eyes. There was no sign of aggression in the animal, but the reason behind its actions remained a mystery. "Why, Zeus?" Lucas muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. Anna looked at Lucas, still hugging Daniel tightly, unable to process everything that had happened. She was confused, scared, and relieved at the same time. But the question hung in the air, unspoken, but felt by all of them. Why would Zeus do that? As the sun set over the horizon, turning the clearing a soft orange, Lucas felt that somehow this wasn't an attack. Zeus wasn't acting like a predator at that moment. But what was the reason? What had led the eagle to kidnap his son in such a desperate way? These were questions that would need to be answered, but the family was still too stunned to find any logic at that moment. Still in shock, Lucas and Anna looked at each other without knowing how to react. Daniel, hugging his mother, trembled, trying to understand what had just happened. But before any words could be spoken, Lucas noticed something that made his heart stop again. Near where Daniel had been playing before the attack, something was moving among the dry leaves. A sinuous shadow. Lucas approached cautiously, pushing aside the branches to reveal a coiled viper about to strike. Its cold eyes were fixed on the spot where Daniel had been standing moments before. "Anna!" Lucas shouted, without taking his eyes off the snake. That was it. That's what Zeus was trying to prevent. Anna, still holding Daniel, stood up slowly, understanding everything at once. What had seemed like a terrible attack had actually been an act of protection. Zeus hadn't kidnapped Daniel. He had saved him from an invisible danger that neither of them had realized. Zeus, standing in the clearing, calmly watched the scene, his wings still raised as if he knew his work was done. Luke approached the eagle, his eyes full of gratitude. "You saved us, old friend," he whispered, his voice filled with emotion. Anna, with tears in her eyes, looked at Zeus in a new way, finally understanding that, from the beginning, the eagle had always been there to protect her family. With the danger gone and their hearts still racing, Lucas and Anna knelt beside Daniel, who was finally beginning to calm down. The shock still hung over everyone, but the realization of what had happened brought deep relief. Zeus, the great eagle, remained motionless, watching from afar, as if he knew that his role had been fulfilled. Anna, still hugging her son, looked at Lucas with tears in her eyes. "He saved Daniel," she whispered, almost in disbelief. "Zeus protected us." Lucas nodded, his eyes fixed on the majestic eagle. With slow steps, he approached Zeus, who watched him fearlessly, his golden eyes reflecting the twilight. The eagle spread its wings slightly, as if it were about to take flight. But Luke, now calmer, noticed something. There was a slight tremor in Zeus's talons, and small spots of blood stained his feathers. "He's been hurt," muttered Lucas, leaning in for a closer look. "Because of Daniel's weight." Anna stood up, still holding Daniel, and approached Lucas. Her eyes quickly noticed the wound on Zeus's claws. "We have to help him," said Anna, her voice firm. "Just like we did before. He saved us. Now it's our turn to take care of him." Lucas nodded. They knew that, even though Zeus was a wild creature, he had connected with this family in a way that transcended anything they had ever seen before. He wasn't just an eagle. He was a guardian. With care, Lucas and Anna took Zeus back to the barn where he had been cared for years before. With the same care, they cleaned his wounds and fed him. Over the next few days, the eagle slowly recovered, always under the watchful eye of the family. After his recovery, Zeus resumed his flights in the skies above the ranch. But now, something had changed. He wasn't just a silent presence. He was a symbol of protection, loyalty, and gratitude. Every time his wings cut through the sky, Lucas, Anna, and Daniel felt safe, as if a greater force was watching over them. Zeus never stayed away for long. He flew freely, as he should, but always returned, keeping watch over the ranch and the family that had once saved him. It was a cycle of give and take, a link between wild nature and the human heart. Lucas, watching Zeus glide over the mountains in the distance, reflected on everything they had experienced. "Nature gives us so much," he said in a soft voice. "And sometimes we find allies in the most unexpected places." Anna, by his side, held his hand tightly. Zeus will always be a part of us, she replied, just as we are part of him. And so Lucas, Anna, and Daniel's ranch continued to be a place where nature and humanity coexisted in perfect harmony, with Zeus, the guardian of the skies, ever watchful, protecting those who had once given him a new chance to fly.